In Payday 2, there are essentially two main objectives: steal shit and make money. But how much shit is there to steal, and how much money can you make? That's where I come in. I'm gonna play every heist in Payday 2, get all the loot in each one, and see how much we end up with. Years ago, I made basically this same video over on my main channel before I started my current analytical content, which you should check out, linked in the description. However, not only is that video really bad because I didn't know how to do anything, like actually, it was one of my earliest videos and it was ass, but it's also out of date because at the time, Overkill had said there wasn't going to be any more content. Then they made more content, so now I'm gonna actually get a complete tally. Oh, and to entice you to stick around, there's an Easter egg in the game that maybe a dozen people outside the dev team know about, including me, and I'm gonna show it to you and explain it when we get to it. So let's quickly go over the rules. 1. This will be done on the Death Wish difficulty. 2. Do all contract broker heists. There are a number of other types of heists such as the tutorial, crime spree, safe house raid, and holdouts, but I'm just looking at the core heisting experience today. 3. Secure all bag loot. This includes cooking meth if chemicals spawn on the map. If any loot is destroyed or otherwise rendered inaccessible, that's a fail and I must restart the day. Heists with infinite loot will each have their own rules that I'll explain when they become relevant. 4. Secure as much instant loot as is reasonable. Anything comparable to a loot bag such as an ATM is mandatory, all deposit boxes and safes with loot are mandatory, and I should make an effort to grab whatever I happen to come across. However, I won't be required to get every single money bundle or cell phone lying around the map. Also, instant cash values will vary because I don't always take the boost, but I'm not going to worry about it. I kinda want this to feel like the results of the average person clearing out the game, and the average person would likely have the boost on some builds and not others. Besides, the fluctuation in value will be minimal in the grand scheme of things. 5. Luck is a thing that can and will affect the types and amounts of loot that spawn. I'll be taking each heist as I find it and not restarting if I don't happen to get the best loot spawns. And real quick, for those who may not be super familiar with this game, here's some very quick terminology so you know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'll try to keep this short. A lot of the game revolves around setting drills, which act as timers you have to defend. If I say drill, that's what I'm talking about. Being downed refers to getting knocked down, usually by losing all your health, at which point you have 30 seconds to be helped up before you're eliminated by being taken into custody. A core stealth mechanic is what are called pagers. When a guard is eliminated, you must spend 10 seconds answering their pager and you can only answer 4 pagers per heist. A 5th will instantly sound the alarm. If I ever refer to a heist as loud, that simply means we're going shooty, not sneaky. The special enemies I'll talk about are tasers, which stun, then down you. Medics heal the enemies. Cloakers insta-down you. Snipers make open areas dangerous. Bulldozers, or dozers, hit hard and are tanky but have a huge headshot multiplier once their faceplate is broken. Lastly, loot is divided into 3 types. There's contract pay, which is the guaranteed amount that a heist pays out. Bags are any loot that becomes a loot bag that must be specially secured, and instant cash is anything that's picked up that has a value but doesn't become a loot bag. I'll be keeping track of all these separately, but also adding them together at the end. That should be all you really need to follow along. I'll do my best to make everything as intuitive as possible as well. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get right into the heisting. And just for clarity, when giving you the loot totals for each heist, I'll be rounding the values just for convenience's sake. But I'll be using the accurate numbers in my final tally. There's over 80 heists here, so I'm just gonna say a few sentences about each and move on for the sake of all of our sanity. First up, the iconic Harvest and Trustee Bank. I decided to just go down the list with these and started with the cash variant. I decided to stealth it because it's easy and moving a bunch of bags through snipery areas isn't super fun. This is a heist where you can actually take total control in stealth, so that's what I did, opening the vault, the ATMs, and the deposit boxes. I ended up with 10 bags of cash and 3 bags gold for a value of $4.8 million, plus $650,000 in contract pay and $1.7 million in instant cash. Pretty solid start. The next 3 variants of the bank heist go exactly the same, with the only difference being the loot inside the vault, so I'm not going to waste your time here and just skip to the loot. Bank heist deposit had 7 bags of cash and 3 bags of gold for $3.9 million plus $1.9 million contract fee and $2.4 million in instant cash. Bank heist gold had 5 bags of cash and 5 bags of gold for $4.5 million plus $1.7 million for the contract and $1.9 million in instant cash. Bank heist random ended up being gold. In total, it had 3 bags of cash and 6 bags of gold for $4.5 million plus $1.7 million for the contract and $1.8 million in instant cash. Jewelry store. It's a small building with everything's just kinda there for the taking. However, we did run into a very obnoxious mechanic that Overkill have thankfully abandoned a long time ago. Mission loot, which means that any bags required for completion were only worth $5,000 instead of their true value of $205,000. The in-game explanation is that the bags required for the escape cover the expenses for the heist and any extra is pure profit. It feels bad, but you can't really complain too hard given how easy this heist is. That being said, I ended the day with 9 bags of jewelry, 8 of them being mission loot for a value of $245,000, plus $390,000 for the contract and $950,000 in instant cash. Next up, Payday 2's first and my personal favorite stealth-only heist, Shadow Raid. I've always loved heists that feature a wide variety of loot, and this one never disappoints. There's a ton I could tell you that I learned over the dozens of times I've played this heist, but again, over 80 heists. The most interesting parts are that you can do an exploit to force the helicopter that comes in to be the loot variant rather than the guard variant, and there's a vault with samurai armor that's a little tricky solo but didn't cause any issues this time. I ended the day with 6 bags of cash, 3 bags of gold, 1 bag of assault rifles, 5 bags of cocaine, 2 big artifacts, 1 server, 1 painting, and 4 pieces of samurai armor for a total value of $13.2 million, plus $650,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Go bank. While this heist is stealthable, I was not going to subject myself to that as it's a pain solo. Plus, I had to bring a saw for the ATMs anyway, and that would just complicate things more, so I went in loud and proud. It's a pretty simple loud heist all things considered. Drill the vault, open the boxes, build the skyhook, secure, and escape. The absolute cavalcade of snipers is always fun to deal with, but I didn't let that stop me from securing 9 bags of cash for a value of $2.5 million, plus $3.6 million for the contract and $1.1 million in instant cash from the boxes and the ATMs. Diamond Store. I've got a lot of good memories of this heist, but nowadays it's really nothing special, though it is notable for being an efficient way to grind infamy if you ECM rush it with a full party. Another control stealth heist where you can loot with impunity once you've taken out all the guards and controlled the victims. There are 2 safes that can spawn extra loot, but didn't this time. I ended the day with 18 bags of jewelry, 14 of which were mission loot for a total value of just under $900,000 plus just under $400,000 for the contract and $2.5 million in instant cash. Now it's time to start off with the always lovely armored transport heists. I've never really liked these ones. They don't really reward you with very much and the snipers are prevalent. You can bypass the drilling portion with shaped charges, but there are 2 issues with that. Firstly, you only have enough to blow open 1 truck in solo. Secondly, that destroys some of the loot, so it's banned for me regardless. So let's get to it. Starting off, we got probably the most worthwhile of the standard transport heists from a loot perspective, Crossroads. This one stands out from the others because it has ATMs, which do jack up the profit of this heist by a noticeable amount. In my run, 4 trucks spawned, so I got to drilling and sawing. I ended up going down a bit more than I'd like to admit, but I ultimately made it out with 14 bags of cash, 5 of them being mission loot. Wait, why the fuck does this already shitty series of heists come with a profit reducer mechanic? Whatever. Total bag loot was $2.8 million, plus $2 million for the contract and $1.7 million in instant cash. Transport Downtown. 4 trucks spawned, and the bag loot was cash. I made it out with 12 bags of cash, 5 of which were mission loot for a total value of $2.2 million, plus $1.7 for the contract and $260,000 in instant cash. Transport Harbor, a heist that holds some very painful memories of grinding out the they see me baggin', they hating achievement. It took me several days of grinding this one achievement because I got extremely unlucky. I'm talking less than 1% chance of it taking as long as it did for me. I'm having fucking Vietnam flashbacks. Only 3 trucks this time. Bag loot was once again cash. I made it out with 9 bags of cash, 5 of which were mission loot for a total value of $1.3 million, plus $1.5 million for the contract and $120,000 in instant cash. Transport Park. 3 trucks again, cash again. I made it out with 9 bags of cash, 5 of which were mission loot for a total value of $1.3 million, plus $1.9 million for the contract and $150,000 in instant cash. Transport Underpass, which is probably my favorite of the standard transport heists. 4 trucks and the bag loot was once again cash. These heists can also give you gold and jewelry, but I guess RNGesus decided I was only going to get cash this run. 12 bags of cash, 5 of which were mission loot for a total value of $2.2 million, plus $1.8 million for the contract and $250,000 in instant cash. Train Heist. So this is a little embarrassing, but OBS glitched out on me and I did not realize it until after I was already done with the heist. I did end up just doing it loud, though you'll be seeing footage of a failed stealth attempt because that's just what I have. The loot on this heist is always the same, so it won't throw off the final tally. This heist definitely shows its age a bit because some parts are just clunky as hell. In any case, I drilled open the 3 vaults and made it out with 3 turret parts and 20 bags of turret shells for a total value of $14.8 million, plus $1.7 million for the contract and no instant cash. Mallcrashers. I've always liked the core concept of this heist where your goal isn't to steal stuff or hack some server or do any kind of specialized task. Instead, you just need to cause as much destruction as possible. That being said, there is certainly stuff to steal with a jewelry store, money in one of the 4 safes scattered around, and a bunch of ATMs. Interestingly, this is one of the few heists where loot cannot be secured and must instead be carried out on your back. I made it out with 1 bag of cash and 3 bags of jewelry for a total value of $900,000 plus $600,000 for the contract and $2.7 million in instant cash. Next up, the single worst paying heist in the game on the Mayhem difficulty and above. 4 stores. So I kinda fucked up the recording on this one. This is the last time, I swear. I just forgot to hit the record button. But I did get a screenshot of the ending screen. This is a heist where you need to steal $15,000 worth of stuff, and annoyingly, most of the time you leave with no bag loot. Lower difficulties have an ATM. However, it's removed on Mayhem Plus because people would just cheese the heist with an ECM to get an easy, no-risk completion. Unfortunately, Overkill neglected to replace it with literally anything, and this heist, which already sucked, is now even worse. I ultimately made it out with no bags, $600,000 for the contract, and $73,000 in instant cash. What a joke. That's the kind of payout you'd get on a normal difficulty heist, and this was after getting all loot on Death Wish. White Christmas, Payday 2's first ever heist featuring infinite loot. The main objective is simple: get Vlad's alcoholic brother from the crashed plane to safety, and from there to the escape. The loot comes in the form of presents scattered around the map. They can contain nothing, some instant cash, or pure cocaine, which is actually a different loot type than regular cocaine. However, more presents will periodically spawn, and this continues until you leave. So since all loot is impossible on an infinite heist, my rules for this one will be that I need to open as many of the presents that spawn at the start of the heist as I can and secure whatever's inside. Now, I don't know these spawns by heart, and my HUD mod only shows loot when its container has been opened, so while I did do a sweep of the area, I can't definitively confirm that I got every single present. If I didn't, I came pretty close. But of those presents, I made it out with 4 bags of pure cocaine for a total value of $2.5 million. Plus $500,000 for the contract and $75,000 in instant cash. Ukrainian Job. This is just spicy jewelry store, but instead you need to get a specific item from the safe rather than a certain number of bags. I made it out with 4 bags of jewelry for a total value of $800,000 plus $1.4 million for the contract and just under $1 million in instant cash. Nightclub. This heist has a great feel to it, but it's bogged down by a lot of the less than stellar design decisions you could often find in early Payday 2. I did luckily get 2 safes to spawn, meaning the payout will actually be decent. After waiting on the drills, I got out with 4 bags of cash, all of which were mission loot, and 3 bags of cocaine for a total value of $1.3 million, plus another $1.3 million for the contract and $16,000 in instant cash from the money bundles lying around. Next up, the heist that many people understandably don't really care for, but I have a bit of a soft spot for: Meltdown. It's cool to be able to return to the Shadow Raid map for a loud heist, and of course it has a bunch of loot to secure. This heist was made during Overkill's trying to make the driving mechanics work phase, and while it's probably their best attempt at it, it still doesn't really make the heist better. In any case, I ended the day with 8 warheads, 5 bags of cocaine, and 3 bags of gold, for a total value of $11.4 million plus $1.7 million for the contract and no instant cash. Next, a decent heist that has a bit of an undeserved bad reputation due to its unfortunate connection to what was probably Payday 2's biggest controversy: Aftershock. Remember when they added loot boxes to the game in the guise of a reward and then released a heist where you had to recover said loot boxes? Yeah. When you look past that, I do like the verticality of this heist and how you can use all the destruction and debris for makeshift cover as you make your way around the map. Even the truck isn't the worst thing in the world, since the unwieldiness of Payday 2's driving kind of fits with a box truck. The biggest negative for me is the absolute clusterfuck that is the escape segment. It is so much more dangerous than the rest of the heist, and not even in a fun way. Well, in any case, I ended the day with 12 safes for a total value of $11.3 million plus $8.1 million for the contract and no instant cash. And now, the last Vlad heist for the time being: stealing Christmas. I've always liked this heist. The randomness of the objectives means every run is a little different, and there's a decent chunk of extra loot if you're willing to go the extra mile. And ATMs as well. The snipers on the roof are a pain, and it's never fun to have to run back and forth as a solo player, but this heist is a pretty good time all around. I ended the day with 1 Tin Boy toy, 1 case of expensive wine, 1 VR headset, 6 bags of jewelry, and 3 bags of cash for a total value of $3.9 million, plus $8.1 million for the contract and $1.7 million in instant cash. Now we're moving on to Hector's jobs. I always felt that Hector was a bit underutilized as a character, and though the whole Hoxton storyline was great, I didn't feel like we'd gotten to know Hector well enough for his betrayal to really sting. In any case, it's time for Watchdogs. While I personally don't really care for this heist, I do appreciate the oh fuck nature of it and how we're basically on a desperate scramble to escape a dire situation. Moving 12 bags through hostile territory on 2 separate maps, this is a multi-day heist, meaning 2 separate levels that must be beaten together to complete the heist, isn't my favorite thing to do. The second day does try to do a risk-reward thing with only allowing you to secure 4 bags at a time. Not a fan of the execution, but I respect the attempt. I ended up filling the boat twice and then skipping the third weight by taking the remaining bags out on our backs. In the end, I made it out with 12 bags of cocaine, 4 of which were mission loot for a total value of $3.3 million plus $3.9 million for the contract and no instant cash. Next up, Firestarter. I've always loved Firestarter. Day 1 is technically stealthable, but it's not really meant to be, so I just went in guns blazing. Pretty simple objectives here. Get the weapons that spawn in the warehouses and trucks and either destroy them or steal them. You only need 8 for the escape, but I of course nabbed all 11 of the assault rifles that spawned. 11? I could have sworn 12 were guaranteed to spawn. Whatever, I've only got 1600 hours in the game, what the hell do I know? I ended day 1 with 11 bags of assault rifles and 1 bag of cash, but we're not done yet. Day 2 is a hit on the FBI. This one's a lot faster in stealth, so that's what I did. Sadly, nothing good spawned in the evidence locker, so I missed out a bit there. But the goat does technically have a value, even if it's only 20k, so I've got to drill the door anyway. But overall, there were no issues. I secured both servers, though they don't actually have bag value, so they're not getting added to the tally. I also secured the goat, but I'm not quite done yet. Day 3 is yet another variant of the Harvard and Trustee bank heist with 2 main differences. There's a power box behind a security door on the roof that you need to shut down to not get zapped by the vault, and the center loot in the vault is replaced by a pile of cash that you need to burn. I won't waste your time, it went how it always goes. Only notable thing is that a safe spawned in the manager's office, so I did get a tiny bit of extra cash. The deposit boxes had 5 bags of cash for me. So after all 3 days, I ultimately ended up with 11 bags of assault rifles, 6 bags of cash, and 1 goat for a total value of $8.6 million. Plus $4.5 million for the contract and $1.8 million in instant cash. Next up, the conclusion to the Hector trilogy and the OG cash juggernaut, Rats. Day 1 is absolutely iconic, forcing us to cook meth after the original cooks were executed. 7 sets of chemicals spawn around the map, so naturally, I had to hunker down and get cooking. After a solid 27 minutes of cooking, killing, and bagging, I made it out with 7 bags of meth. But it's not really mine just yet. Day 2 is the trade with the Cobras. After trading for the objective and extra cash, you can just steal the meth back to secure it for real this time. Day 3 is a simple elimination mission where I've just got to kill all the gangsters on the bridge. But instead of just leaving there, I do have to take the money from the bus. All in all, I was able to steal 11 bags of cash and made it out with no issues. And after all that, it's time for the biggest payday yet. 7 bags of meth and 15 bags of cash for a total value of $24 million plus $700,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Next up, we're starting on the Elephant's quest line. As someone who refuses to discuss politics on any of my 3 channels, I've always appreciated how Overkill were able to implement heists that were very much political in nature, without making any political statements and not taking any sides. Even though the gang is working with a Republican, all politicians are portrayed as pretty awful regardless of affiliation. I like it. First up, Big Oil. This heist has some pretty cool ideas, and it showcases Overkill's willingness to experiment, and though it's not a perfect heist by any means, I do appreciate what it represents. First course of business is to steal an address from a biker gang's headquarters. This was the first assassination-style heist where you can actually just fucking kill everyone since there are no pager guards. After killing everyone, all that was left was to secure any loot while waiting on the Titan safe drills, including a big one which takes longer. There were 4 assault rifles scattered around the map alongside a bunch of ATMs in the basement. A nice chunk of loot, but I'm not done yet. On day 2, we have to go to that address and steal a prototype engine that would cripple the oil industry. Side note, no it wouldn't. Oil is used for a lot besides just fuel, but that's besides the point. I opted for a low detection build that I would use as a pseudo-stealth option since you can partially stealth this heist. There's a very cryptic puzzle to find the correct engine, but the solution is widely known at this point, so it's not a huge deal. I secured the engine, though it doesn't actually have any direct value. After all that, I made it out with 4 bags of assault rifles for a value of $2.8 million plus $16.3 million for the contract and $3.1 million in instant cash. Next up, Framing Frame, a neat stealth-focused multi-day heist. While stealth is not a requirement for completion, I will need to stealth day 3 if I want to secure all loot. Day 1 is the Art Gallery. Honestly, I think this is one of the better small-scale stealth maps in the game. A decent number of guards, but a lot of opportunities to avoid detection, and with a bit of skill, you can even toss paintings up through the window to save a bit of time. I actually like this one a lot. I made it out with 9 paintings, though they don't count toward the total loot because we don't get to keep them. Day 2 is an uneventful heist all around, and if you stealth Day 1, there's almost no chance of this one being anything more than a bag moving simulator. I traded my 9 paintings for 9 bags of cash. Bit of a ripoff, but whatever. Day 3 is a neat stealth experience on paper, but can be very frustrating in practice. The guards just seem to have a knack for being in the exact wrong place, and this is probably the least consistent I am in any stealth map. And is definitely not particularly solo friendly, as you have to move 8 loot bags through hostile territory just for base completion, and 8 more bags, of gold no less, for all loot. I did also secure the old wine, but I'm not actually sure if it has any value on this heist. I know old wine has value on hostile takeover, but I didn't get the normal loot pop-up when I secured it here. I guess I'm just gonna leave it as a question mark. I'll be doing enough math at the end of the video, I don't feel like doing more here. All in all, I ended the heist with no paintings because remember we don't get to keep them, 9 bags of cash, 8 bags of gold, and 1 bag of old wine which may or may not hold value for a total value of $7.5 million, plus $3.9 million for the contract and no instant cash. Next up, Election Day. This heist is another result of Payday 2's experimental phase and features a really unique mechanic that I wish was expanded upon further. That being a different Day 2 depending on how you handled Day 1, and yes, I will be doing both variants for this video. Day 1 is a bit of a joke. It's brain dead easy to zip over to the trucks, plant a tracker, and get out. I decided I would let Lady Luck decide which version I do first since you can get an easy 50-50 in like 30 seconds. I took a shot and tagged the wrong truck, so Day 1 ended with no loot and it looks like I'm starting with Plan C. This is a modified bank heist. Despite that, not a whole lot of loot to speak of. Everything went smoothly and I made it out with 4 bags of cash, though 2 of them were mission loot for a total value of $630,000, plus $1.3 million for the contract and $1.1 million in instant cash. Now let's go back in time to take on Election Day Plan A. A bit of extra effort on Day 1 guarantees the warehouse on the next. Day 2, like Framing Frame, can be done loud but has loot locked behind completing the objectives in stealth. This is a pretty fun stealth map with a lot of cover and verticality to play around with, and it has a civilian camera operator, meaning you don't have to sacrifice a pager to deal with the cameras. Believe it or not, I was able to get all the machines hacked and all the money secured without dropping a single pager. Trust me, that's not the norm for me. But once the final machine was hacked, the truck next to the escape opened up for some additional loot. Overall, I made it out with 6 bags of cash and 7 bags of gold for a total value of $6 million plus $1.3 million for the contract and no instant cash. Now it's time to move on to a new contractor, the Dentist, modeled after and voiced by Giancarlo Esposito, who will get us started on my personal favorite Payday 2 storyline centering around our very own Hoxton. First up, his test for us, Big Bank. While I do like Big Bank quite a bit, it's very much not a solo-friendly heist in stealth or in loud since there's one mechanic that requires 2 people to be able to solve a puzzle without guessing, and there are multiple objectives designed to be done simultaneously by multiple people. Also, I had to use a weird build for this heist specifically. This machine right here can only be opened as if you were picking a safe. No drills, no shaped charges, just lockpicking. Meaning I have to actually invest in a few stealth skills to open it, and it's basically an ATM, so I have to grab it. All in all, I made it out with 15 bags of cash and 7 bags of gold for a total value of $8.7 million plus $5.9 million for the contract and $800,000 in instant cash. Next up, my absolute favorite heist in the game, Hotline Miami. Man, this heist is so much fun and a great crossover with the Hotline Miami game. Day 1 involves fucking up a motel and gas station owned by the Commissar, who we need to kill. I scoured the motel and the cars and found 1 bag of cash. My HUD said there was another, but I checked literally every spawn point, and according to Google, there can be a bag that spawns outside the map on this heist in particular, so I'm going to assume that's what happened here. The meth lab had 2 sets of chemicals, so I cooked those while doing the other assorted tasks, and used an RNG manipulation exploit to guarantee 4 chemical sets in the basement. I escaped with 1 bag of cash, 3 bags of assault rifles, and 6 bags of meth, but we're not done yet. Day 2 is the infamous 4 floors, a dilapidated apartment building that functions as a semi-random maze. On my first attempt, I actually ended up missing when I was securing loot, resulting in a bag of cash falling off the edge, forcing me to restart. That was fun. But in my latest attempt, there were no issues and the Commissar died. All in all, I ended the heist with 7 bags of cash, 6 bags of cocaine, 3 bags of assault rifles, and 6 bags of meth, for a total value of $23.3 million plus $2.4 million for the contract and $23,000 in instant cash from a handful of money bundles on Day 1. Next up, the original XP grind heist, Hoxton Breakout. Day 1 is the prison break, and generally speaking, there isn't any loot to go for, with one exception. On day 1, the escape path is randomized, and one of the streets does have an ATM, forcing me to bring my saw. However, RNG did not take me there, so there's that. One escort mission later, and Hoxton is finally free. But we're not done yet. Day 2 has us assaulting the FBI, looking for information on whoever it was that set Hoxton up in the first place. This is a pretty well designed map with a combination of static defense and a random selection of objectives that take you all over the building. A lot of fun, but sadly no loot to speak of, so at the end of everything we're left with only $16.7 million for the contract and nothing else. Next up, the conclusion to the Hoxton storyline, Hoxton Revenge. The objective is simple: raid the safe house holding the person that sold Hoxton out and grab whatever physical evidence the FBI has. This is a stealth-focused heist that has some good ideas, but I always found it very obnoxious myself. Lots of guards in a very cramped area. Very stressful. I swear, even just rewatching my footage from this heist is enough to spike my cortisol levels. In any case, once the time lock to the panic room is finished, it's revealed that the rat is Hector. Kill him and it's time to grab the evidence, which does have value. In the end, I made it out with 8 bags of evidence for a total value of just under $5 million, plus $520,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Well, that's the end of the Hoxton storyline. It feeds into the wider dentist storyline, and now we've got the diamond. Which diamond? The diamond, motherfucker! This is a museum heist where we have to get through several layers of security to get to the diamond, and some of the exhibits can be stolen along the way. However, the way this map is designed puts me in a bit of an awkward situation. See, some of the artifacts can be broken, making me want to use stealth to prevent the inevitable destruction of loot in a firefight. However, the final floor puzzle is extremely easy to fuck up solo due to how short the timer is on higher difficulties, which will force things to go loud. So I decided to go in with a low detection loud build so I could grab at least the breakable artifacts ahead of time while still being able to shoot my way out if need be. Well, needed indeed be. Still, at the end I made it out with 16 artifacts, note that these are different than the ones in Shadow Raid and are worth much less, and the diamond for a total value of $9.4 million plus $520,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Next, we have the conclusion to the dentist's storyline for the time being, and the reason he got into contact with the Payday gang in the first place, the Golden Grin Casino. This is not my favorite heist by a long stretch, but I've always appreciated how stylish it is. This heist can be done in stealth, though it's clearly meant to be done loud since the stealth objectives are kind of a pain in the ass. In loud is all about assembling and protecting a gigantic arc cutter called the BFD, or Big Fucking Drill, despite the fact that it's not a drill. So Overkill just fucking stuffed the shit out of this heist with money, both bag loot and like 200 small bundles. And of course, behind yet another door is the mission objective, a mysterious box that the dentist very much wants. A bunch of bag moving later, and I made it out with 1 painting, 28 bags of cash, and 1 mystery box for a total value of $9.2 million, plus $650,000 for the contract, and $235,000 in instant cash. Next up, Art Gallery, which is just Framing Frame Day 1 converted into a single day heist. It goes pretty much exactly like Framing Frame. Only difference is that you need to secure 6 paintings instead of 4, and those 6 are mission loot. The point was to try to balance this version around actually being able to keep the paintings, which are worth much more than the money bags. I've already been through this process before. I made it out with 9 paintings, 6 of which were mission loot, for a total value of $1.9 million, plus just under $400,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Next, Cook-Off, which is an adjusted version of Rat's Day 1. The biggest difference here is that whenever you run out of chemicals, you can have more delivered, allowing you to infinitely cook meth. Cool concept if you like this map. However, since there's no all loot possible, as there's always the ability to get more, I decided I would just cook the minimum and dip. I made it out with 3 bags of meth for a total value of just under $8 million, plus just under $6 million for the contract, and no instant cash. Next, we've got the first of the Halloween heists, Safehouse Nightmare, which takes place in the original safe house from back when the game first launched. These event heists used to only be available around Halloween time, though they've since been made available year-round. I fucking hate Safehouse Nightmare, and I'm pretty sure it was specifically designed to piss off anyone who plays it. Visibility is fucked due to a constant smoke effect and periodic lighting dips while you're waiting on the drill, with very little cover I might add. The only enemies that spawn are cloakers and the Halloween-exclusive Headless Titan Dozers, which ironically make me want to fucking neck myself. As I mentioned at the start of the video, the whole thing with bulldozers is that you're supposed to expose their face and use their extremely high headshot multiplier to kill them. Headless Titan Dozers don't have a face, and they have a riot shield strapped to their back, blocking any damage from behind that's not armor-piercing. Basically, they're not easy to take down, and they absolutely tear through you. The common strategy for the heist is to cheese it with an auto-restarting drill because everyone agrees it's bullshit. As much as the process sucked, I made it to the exit having secured 4 bags of cash, all of which are fucking mission loot. I told you this map was designed to be infuriating. That was worth a whopping $30,000 plus $1.3 million for the contract and no instant cash. I'm getting pissed off just looking at my footage from this heist. Truly a masterclass in rage bait. For our next Halloween heist, we have Prison Nightmare, which is thankfully a lot more fun than Safehouse Nightmare. This is a heist with infinite loot, and the core concept is that you use a drill to spin a wheel to see what dangers you'll face, with each spin rewarding a choice of loot or escape. Since the infinite loot system is mutually exclusive with the escape, I'm not going to be required to secure any for this video. However, in that escape there is actually some loot to pick up along the way. Just one problem. It is literally impossible to get it all. No, seriously. There's no secure point at this part of the heist, meaning you have to carry the loot out. The loot consists of 1 Almir's toast and 6 warheads. The max team size is 4. So for this video, I'm going to be leaving 3 warheads behind because I straight up can't take them. That being said, without engaging in the core loot system for this heist, it's a very quick process and I made it out with 1 Almir's toast and 3 warheads for a total of $4.9 million, plus just under $400,000 for the contract and no instant cash. For our next Halloween heist, we have the very ambitious Lab Rats. This is a really fun heist in theory, and Overkill really leaned into the silliness that the Halloween events allow them to explore. This is another infinite heist where the core concept is that we're miniature and the map is just a meth lab on a table, and we can keep cooking for as long as we want. Fun heist in theory, but holy shit, cover is a fucking myth. I think this is one of the toughest heists in the game, and not in a fun way. Which is a shame because I really like the core concept and it's got charm to spare. I just wish it was a bit better designed. In any case, after getting absolutely lit up and thank fuck the AI can revive you, I successfully cooked a batch and made it out with 3 bags of meth, though it's actually not the same meth from the other heists since it represents a piece of a batch, not the whole batch. I'm gonna call it mini meth. I made it out with 3 bags of mini meth for a total value of $5.3 million, plus $390,000 for the contract and no instant cash. For our last Halloween heist, we have Cursed Kill Room. I actually kinda like this heist even though I objectively shouldn't. Back in the original Safe House, there was an obstacle course you ran through as fast as possible, shooting targets for extra time. Cursed Kill Room takes that core idea and adds enemies and loot. You have 5 minutes on the clock. Somewhere in the obstacle course, a loot safe will spawn. Stand inside the zone for a set amount of time to open it, with the main timer paused whenever you're in this zone. There's literally no cover while you're doing this part, so it's rough. Secure the loot, finish the obstacle course, and repeat until the timer runs down, at which point you can escape. Slight issue for this video. There's no set amount of loot. I could finish this heist with no loot having ever spawned if I simply avoid the safes. Or I could get a bunch if I play perfectly. Ultimately, I went with the fuck it, we'll do it live strat and just opted to get as much loot as I could no matter how many or how few mistakes I made. I'm not gonna sweat the details 41 heists into this thing with another 43 to go. So I did my best and in my attempt, I was able to open 4 of the safes, making it out with 12 bags of cloaker cocaine for a value of $3.7 million plus $1.3 million for the contract and no instant cash. Returning to canonical heists, we've now got the bomb Dockyard. Okay, so I say canonical, but the 2 variants of the bomb are literally meant to be 2 separate timelines of a sort, representing the 2 possible ways the Payday gang could have stolen the bomb for our newest contractor, the Butcher, with neither one being strictly canon. Still, this is all loot in all heists, not just the canon ones. Dockyard is the stealthable heist that was actually a pretty big deal on release because the guards have set patrol paths, making this much more consistent than previous stealth heists. I was able to get the bomb, open all the crates scattered throughout the map, and use the 2 sets of chemicals that spawned. In the end, I made it out with 4 bomb parts, 3 bags of cocaine, 2 bags of cash, 4 bags of gold, and 2 bags of meth, for a total value of $17.7 million, plus $520,000 for the contract, and $9,000 in instant cash from a handful of money bundles lying around. Man, it feels good to get a big payday again after that string of mediocre ones. Now for the other branch of this pathway, the Bomb Forest. This is a loud heist that's not quite so well made. They got a little bit too fucking cute with their desire to play around with elevation by putting all the important shit on the fucking hill and making you climb on top of train cars to complete objectives. Why is this an issue? Because the physics of Payday 2 don't play nice with that shit. It is so absurdly easy to accidentally fall in such a way that the slope of the hill causes the fall damage to down you. All the while, there's like no cover, with the objectives that force you out of the tiny amounts of cover you do find. Although, one benefit of the fucky physics is that you can straight up ignore the portable ladder you're supposed to use and just jump up the side of the train cars like a fucking mountain goat. Still, this heist does not spark joy. I made it out with 4 bomb parts, 3 bags of gold, and 1 bag of cocaine for a total value of $10.4 million, plus $520,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Scarface Mansion. Yes, this is a cover with that Scarface movie, where you have to kill not the same Scarface as the movie, but a cartel leader named Ernesto Souza, who lives in the original Scarface's mansion and acts out a scene similar to the "say hello to my little friend" thing. Whatever, it's a crossover and they had to include references, I get it. This is a pretty neat heist from a stealth perspective since it has two distinct phases with two distinct identities. The outside is full of guards that don't have pagers, meaning you could actually just eliminate them without consequence. Inside is a more traditional Payday stealth experience with pager guards. I didn't do stealth, so it's not super relevant here, but it's still a cool concept. I escaped with 8 bags of cash and 8 bags of cocaine, which the game calls yayo for this heist specifically. It's the exact same thing with the exact same value. I'm not going to differentiate between the two in the final tally. In any case, the bags were worth $5.7 million, plus $11.7 million for the contract and no instant cash. The Alesso heist. I always found this heist kind of funny because all the dialogue treats Alesso like this mega celebrity household name, and I had literally never heard of him until this crossover. This heist can be stealthed, but since there are ATMs, I just brought a saw and went loud. There's this one really cool part of the heist where you're operating the pyrotechnics and using them to hide the sound and vibration of a few C4 detonations. So the music is blaring, the coked out effects director is yelling through the intercom, and you're making fire happen, while all the combat is happening in close range due to how that section of the map is designed. Fucking amazing, best part of the heist by a lot. Doesn't make a single bit of sense in loud since there's no way they'd be continuing the concert while an active fucking firefight is happening in the same building, but it's such an awesome sequence that I don't even care. Rule of cool wins the day. In any case, I made it out with 18 bags of cash for a total of $5.5 million, plus $6 million for the contract and $600,000 in instant cash. At one point, Overkill decided to do something pretty neat. They actually remade all the heists from the first game and put them in Payday 2 with a number of tweaks and enhancements. Technically, these are canonically different events, with the Payday gang essentially doing the same heist for a different reason, but I think that's kinda dumb. In any case, the first of these heists, at least for this video, is Counterfeit. The idea is simple. 2 guys are running a major counterfeiting ring, and we're going to steal the printing plates they're using to do it. This is a neat heist that does something that no other heist since has done, or at least not in the first or second game. I'm not sure about Payday 3 since I haven't played it since it released, though to be fair, I'm not exactly alone there. I'm getting off track. The gimmick for this heist is that it's partially stealthable. If you take control of the area quietly, you can get started on the objectives and get the timers ticking in safety. You'll have to deal with a few police patrols, and eventually the alarm will sound no matter what you do, but if you do things properly, you can get a solid chunk of this heist done before anyone starts trying to kill you. Now, one interesting thing Overkill changed with this heist in Payday 2 is that once you have the plates, you can actually infinitely print counterfeit money before you leave. However, this is entirely optional and mutually exclusive with the escape, so I'm not required to do it for this video. But it is noteworthy as a thing you can do if you want. That said, this was ultimately a nice quick heist. No bag loot, but $7.5 million for the contract and just under $100,000 in instant cash. Next up, another remake. This one is First World Bank, the first heist from the first game, and unlike the first game, you can stealth it. However, since there are a number of ATMs right in the lobby, I need my saw, and there's just no way to open them up without getting caught. So I'm doing things loud. I should mention that there's an interesting thing about this heist. See, both of the first 2 Payday games had what is called The Secret. I'm not sure if Payday 3 has one yet because, well, these were very intricate puzzles that the community all came together to solve, which led to some interesting gameplay things being unveiled. The first game's secret was in First World Bank, and you can do it in Payday 2 as well. After doing a special sequence of actions, you unlock a secret door near the vault. You can set a half-hour drill on the thing to open it, and then there's another puzzle in that room. Complete that, and you'll be rewarded with 70 bags of gold. Yeah, that's the most loot in any non-infinite heist by like a lot. I did not do this for one simple reason. Unless you're cheating, you need a team of 4 human players, and I was doing this all solo. So if you're going for all loot and you have people helping you, you'll get an extra 70 bags that I didn't. The regular portion of this heist went smoothly, and I grabbed a bunch of money from the vault, threw it into a vent, and went for the escape. Another change to this heist is that on the way to the escape, there's actually a safe that you can open to get a pickup worth $260,000, so I consider it mandatory for this video. With that detour out of the way, all that was left was to secure the loot and escape. I made it out with 14 bags of cash, 8 of which were unfortunately mission loot, for a total of $1.9 million plus $6.5 million for the contract and $2.4 million in instant cash. Next, we have Payday 2's second stealth-only heist, Murky Station. One half of the Hardcore Henry crossover, which is sadly no longer accessible unless you owned the game before the licensing nuke of August 2024. Or if you're using a DLC unlocker. Look, in my eyes, it's perfectly ethical to pirate abandonware, and it sucks that multiple heists are no longer available to new players. Side note, Hardcore Henry is a must-watch. Seriously, I cannot understate how fucking fun that movie is. Anyway, back to the heist. It's a train yard with an EMP and a bunch of weapons. I made it out with 2 EMP parts and 14 murky water weapons for a total of $9.4 million plus $650,000 for the contract and no instant cash. Next, the second part of the Hardcore Henry crossover, also no longer available, Boiling Point. So the idea is that the antagonist of Hardcore Henry has this super soldier project in Russia, and we're using the EMP from Murky Station to fuck with it. The way it works in-universe is that Hardcore Henry is canon to Payday 2, but Payday 2 is not canon to Hardcore Henry. The goal is to use a scanner to gather data on the super soldiers. The more you scan, the bigger the payday. Even though it's still technically just one bag no matter how much I scan, I didn't think it would be in the spirit of the challenge to just do the minimum. So I scanned all 4 bodies before escaping with 1 master server worth $4.1 million, plus $8.8 million for the contract and no instant cash, thus concluding the Hardcore Henry crossover. Next up we have the 50th heist for this video. It's yet another crossover. If you don't play Payday 2, I promise I am not joking about this. Goat Simulator. Yeah, definitely not on my bingo card when it released. Naturally, this is a very silly heist, and it's complemented by the contractor being Vlad, whose whole thing is that he's batshit insane. This heist honestly has a lot of charm in theory, and the Payday franchise has been known to inject a bit of humor here and there, so it's honestly not as out of place as you'd think. However, this heist is widely disliked by the player base because it's a 2-day heist that constantly forces you to make your way through areas with little to no cover while getting absolutely lit up. The idea is that we start out in the city to recover some product that had gotten disrupted during transportation. That product is cocaine that had been shoved up the asses of a bunch of goats. That is not a sentence I ever expected to say, and I'm weirdly kinda glad this is going on my unmonetized channel and not the main channel. But yeah, these goats are scattered all over the map, and the goal of day 1 is to collect them all and throw them into the escape point. After a frustrating bit of gameplay, I escaped with 15 goats. But we're not done yet. Day 2 is more goat extraction. The Payday gang was originally going to be bodyguards while the cocaine was removed from the goats, but shit happened and now we've just got to get them out of here and dip. The solution is to build a cage that'll be picked up by plane. Of course, the cage can only be built in one of several randomly selected locations, all of which are out in the fucking open. And the police can grab the goats, meaning that things just get kind of chaotic, and it's pretty easy to get messed up and have to do another cage cycle if you're unlucky, especially as a solo. That unfortunately happened to me, and the first cage only took 11 of the 15 goats. A second cage took care of the rest. That's the ghosts extracted, but that's not quite the end of the heist. For the escape, there's a driving segment, followed by 2 thankfully relatively short waits for a drill and for a bridge to turn. Still, there's not all that much cover here, so it's not hard for this section to ruin things right at the end. Fortunately, that didn't happen to me, and I got out having secured the 15 goats. However, these aren't actually considered bag loot since they're just baked into the contract pay. So I made it out with technically no bags, but a solid $16.2 million for the contract and $1.5 million in instant cash. Next up, we've got my personal least favorite heist. Yes, I like it even less than Goat Simulator. Car Shop. This was the first heist in the game to feature a drivable vehicle, but there's an important detail. Despite the fact that Payday 2 was built on an engine originally intended for racing games, the driving sucks in this game. They really tried to make it work, but outside of very limited use cases, it just never bore fruit. The Car Shop heist was pretty much designed to show off the, at the time, new driving mechanics. This is another instance where my solo play is going to limit my loot. Each car requires a human player to steal it, and due to the point of no return timer, there's no backtracking for the rest. So I was only able to grab 1 car, but if you're doing this with a full group, you'll be able to get 4. Thankfully, the driving segment didn't suck as much as I remember it sucking on release, so there was no issue there. I made it out with 1 car for a total of $820,000, plus $1.3 million for the contract, and no instant cash. At least this one was quick. Biker Heist. This one was designed to give us a story explanation for the inclusion of the DLC character Rust, modeled after and voiced by Ron Perlman. Look, I like his work in general, but he really phoned it in. All of his voice lines sound like he did not give a single solitary fuck. It's a shame because I think if his voice acting actually had some effort put into it, Rust could have easily been a fan favorite character instead of the concentrated dose of mid he ended up as. The heist, however, I do like that, despite the mixed opinions the community has for it. For day 1 of this heist, we're in one of the clubhouses of the Overkill MC, a biker gang that aren't very friendly with the Payday gang. Remember the biker house from Big Oil? That was also them. And yes, the name is a reference to Overkill, the developers of the game. Basically, Rust is defecting to us, and on day 1 we need to get his bike back. There's also loot scattered around. Now here's where I may or may not have made a mistake. I fucking scoured the place, but there appears to be 1 bag of cocaine missing according to my HUD mod. I genuinely couldn't find the thing, and this was my second attempt because I restarted after the exact same thing happened the first time. 1 missing bag of cocaine. So I'm thinking there might be a spawn outside the map like in Hotline Miami, but I just don't know for sure. In any case, fast forward through the repairs and the single worst motorcycle driving segment I've ever played in any game. Seriously, the thing handles like a fucking brick. I made it out with 4 bags of cocaine and 4 bags of assault rifles, but we're not done yet. Day 2 has us doing a train robbery. First of all, there's a radio right at the back of the train playing fucking Ride the Valkyries, so that kinda sets the action set piece tone of this map. The goal is simple, get to the front of the train to get the loot. Simple in theory, but the enemies really funnel the fuck in and it can be pretty tough. Going for all loot can be rough on this one because it's a difficult map as I mentioned, but you also need several trips to get everything. But that's not going to stop me, and between this and day 1, I made it out with 1 BCI helmet, 3 bags of cocaine, and 12 bags of assault rifles, for a total value of $13.1 million, plus $8.8 million for the contract, and no instant cash. Next up, another heist from the first game, Panic Room. The premise for this one is that there's an apartment building owned by the Cobra Gang, who, like the Overkill MC, are a faction that act as side characters in the Payday universe. Built into the apartment is a big panic room / vault that contains a ton of valuables. So naturally, we're gonna blow a big ass hole in the top of the building to take the panic room away via helicopter. Payday 1 heists were kinda batshit insane. The Payday 2 version of this heist doesn't change a whole lot, but there is some extra loot scattered around that wasn't in the original game. There's this really odd section of the heist where the objective is to kill snipers on the roof. Sounds like you just take out a set of snipers that spawn there and you're good to go, right? You'd think so, wouldn't you? It's more like kill the snipers, then just keep watching the spawn points and kill the new ones that spawn, all while your pilot is yelling at you to kill the snipers. Eventually the objective will trigger, but for the life of me, I couldn't tell you what the actual flag is. I'm sure there's info out there, but I just don't feel like googling it. Despite some of the weirdness, I do find this heist pretty fun. The first game may not have had a whole lot of heists, but they absolutely all had a lot of love and care put into them. In any case, I made it out with 1 giant toothbrush and 9 bags of cocaine for a value of $7.4 million, plus $7.7 million for the contract and just under $40,000 in instant cash. Next up, we have Brooklyn 1010, which is a crossover heist with the John Wick franchise and is another casualty of August 2024. Someone really needs to get Stop Killing Games onto this shit. Now, Wick was already a playable character, even though he's no longer available, but the VA just couldn't do the impression well enough, so he's pretty forgettable. But this heist actually has Charon's voice actor from the movies reprise his role for this heist, where the objective is to rescue him from enemy gangsters and later the police. Pretty neat. I actually think this is a pretty well-designed heist for the most part. In particular, I really like the opening section where, as you're fighting off enemies, you periodically have to kill enemies outside the building on the street below to move things along. It really keeps you on your toes as you deal with the people shooting at you while taking shots out the window whenever you can get a spare second. The escape is always really fucking dicey. The cops funnel in on you, you can't effectively cover hop to work your way through, and there's a fucking turret in the way. I haven't talked about those at all, but suffice to say, they hurt and are a pain to deal with. Usually it's not that bad, but this one's placement is particularly problematic, especially since the loot bags were slowing me down. It was close, but I managed to make it out with 4 bags of assault rifles worth $2.5 million, plus $8 million for the contract and $9,000 in instant cash. Next up, we've got another stealth-only heist, Yacht Heist. This is also part of the John Wick crossover and is therefore delisted, though the connection isn't quite as obvious. As the name implies, we're on a yacht for this one, and the goal is to find the hidden stashes of money and steal them. I don't really like this heist very much because the area is just so cramped that movement always feels incredibly restrictive, which I don't really enjoy in any stealth game. Fortunately, while there are a ton of places the money can spawn, you do get told where your loot actually is. I had a pretty rough time with this one. It's probably just that I'm not very experienced with this heist in particular. It was released during one of my extended breaks, but I had to restart multiple times and it was getting pretty frustrating. On top of the money scattered throughout the map, there are also a handful of artifacts. Not the Shadow Raid ones, the museum ones. So of course I had to grab those too. Thankfully, most of them are right near windows, so no issue there. You know, aside from the fact that there are civilians that are placed right by them and a guard that passed all through the area. Yeah, that fucked up one of my attempts. Still, with some persistence, I got through it. Hey, look at what you can do with a shotgun. Perfect for this map. Well, despite using up all my pagers and having a few close calls, I managed to make it out with 8 bags of cash and 7 artifacts, for a total of $3.9 million plus $4.5 million for the contract and no instant cash. Next up, another remake, Undercover. This heist is unique in that there's an extended preparation phase here. Everything takes place in an abandoned apartment complex, and assuming you don't shoot a gun to trigger the alarm, you have time to search for planks to board up the various windows and vents before you get under attack. The idea is there's a corrupt IRS agent with a server full of something that'll let you do a huge bank transfer. Don't worry about it. And we have to kidnap the guy and decrypt the stuff on it. Easy. The heist itself is pretty fun in my opinion, with a lot of close quarters action and a lot of fun ways to play around with the layout as you defend a few points simultaneously. But for the purposes of this video, it's pretty boring considering there is zero optional loot on the map, not even any money bundles. So at the end of the heist, I received $8.8 million for the contract and nothing else. Yet another remake, Slaughterhouse. I used to not really like this heist, but it's grown on me over the years, and in my opinion, it absolutely nails the action movie bullshit vibe of the first game. The mercenary group Murky Water has an armored convoy transporting a safe full of gold, and we want it. So we get an excavator to push the loot truck off a ledge and into a nearby slaughterhouse. The escape is this convoluted thing with shipping crates, a crane, and fire. It's so dumb, and I love it. Aside from the gold, there's also a special pig in the slaughterhouse that's mostly just for an achievement, but it does have some value, technically, so I gotta take it. In any case, this heist is a lot of waiting and getting shot at by snipers, so let's skip ahead. I made it out with 10 bags of gold and 1 pig for a total of $5.9 million plus $7.8 million for the contract and $30,000 in instant cash. Next up, we've got the first mission with Locke and one of my personal favorite heists, Beneath the Mountain. That one's also no longer available. Licensing can suck my dick. I haven't been talking too much about the story in this video, but Locke's introduction marked a major turning point, and he would become a key figure who moved the overall story of the game forward, rather than the occasional smaller scale plotlines we've had up to this point. I figure it's worth mentioning. This heist has 2 stages, one where you can open underground vaults for big loot, and an escape segment where you can nab cash and gold as you prep the exit. I'm keeping these sections short for the sake of time, but I really do love this heist. In the end, I made it out with 1 lost artifact, 1 masterpiece, 1 master server, 1 prototype, 4 bags of gold, and 2 bags of cash for a total of $11.2 million, plus $3.9 million for the contract, and no instant cash. Birth of Sky. Oh yeah, I should mention that this and the previous heist are a crossover with the 2015 remake of the Point Break movie, which explains why those 2 heists got 2024'd. I haven't seen the movie. Anyway, while Birth of Sky isn't exactly my favorite heist, it does have that Payday 1 action movie bullshit flair, and I do appreciate it. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot to say here for this video, as the bags you collect are actually baked into the contract pay, and the few pieces of instant cash are not worth tracking down because they're really just for an achievement. So I made it out with no bag loot, no instant cash, and $7.5 million for the contract. Next up, another remake, Heat Street. The movie Heat was a major inspiration for the first game, and like the other remake heists, it's wild and sprawling and just has a ton of stuff going on. However, while there's a lot to say about this heist, and it can also be pretty fucking hard on higher difficulties, there's no loot. Look, we're like 50 minutes into this video, there are still 24 more heists to go, and I want to get this video done already. I made it out with $7.1 million for the contract, and nothing else. Yet another remake, Green Bridge. They tried to tie this remake to the main story, but the plotline they tied it to kind of ended up going nowhere. It's whatever. One thing I don't like about this is how the total destruction of the bridge was intentional in Payday 2 rather than an accident like the first game. As much as the Payday gang are not good people, they do generally have a spare civilians if you can attitude, and this completely flies in the face of that. Anyway, it's an escort mission followed by a defense and an escape, though the remake added an armored car for some extra loot. Definitely not complaining about that. I didn't care for this heist in the brief time I played the first game, but I do like it now. I made it out with 4 bags of cash for a total of $1.2 million, plus $7.5 million for the contract and $40,000 in instant cash. Next, Alaskan Deal. This is a very important heist for the main story of Payday 2, and it was the first in a chain of M. Night Shyamalan twists. That's not important right now. I don't have a lot of experience with this heist because, like Yacht Heist, this was released during one of my extended breaks. But from what I played, it really feels like it takes the oh shit vibe of Watchdogs and puts it into a heist that's actually fun. And there's some loot scattered around as well, which I always like. I'll also say that the way this map is designed, you can get a lot of improvised partial cover as the objectives constantly force you all over the place. It really emphasizes positioning and quick thinking more than most maps, and I like that. Anyway, I made it out with 4 bags of assault rifles and 4 bags of cash for a total value of $3.7 million, plus $3.9 million for the contract, and no instant cash. Next up we have another remake, Diamond Heist. No, not Diamond Store, no, not The Diamond, Diamond Heist. This is the only heist that was actually stealthable in the first game, despite the fact that that game didn't really have stealth mechanics. I stealthed as long as I could, and I at least got the vault open, but it didn't last. Oh well, still saved some time. I will note that there's a chance that a red diamond can spawn in the vault as well, which will more than double the value of the bag loot, but it's pretty rare and it didn't happen in this run. I made it out with 8 bags of diamonds for a total of $1.6 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract and $300,000 in instant cash. Next, Reservoir Dogs, and yes, it's a crossover with the Tarantino film, and it's another delisted heist. Wait, the fuck? Not only is this one of the best heists in the game, but it's also one of the most important heists for the fucking story. Actual major plot shit happens in this heist. Use a fucking DLC unlocker if you don't have this one already, because you're missing out. Anyway, this is such a fun heist, and on release, it was a fucking trip. Much like the movie, the heist plays around with time and has you do day 2 before day 1 with Locke directing things. Which is strange considering he supposedly betrayed the group in Alaskan Deal. The first stage takes place in the warehouse from the movie. In the Payday version, the gang basically cleans up the mess from the botched robbery and secures the loot while defending the warehouse. Interestingly, due to the weird chronology of this heist, the amount of diamond bags you secure on the warehouse stage caps the value of the diamonds you secure on the next stage. Of course, I grabbed them all regardless because I had to. Day 1, or well, technically day 2, fuck it, you know what I mean, can be pretty tough, but I made it out with 6 bags of diamonds. But I'm not done yet. The next day, canonically day 1, is the robbery, which is never actually shown in the movie. Like the movie, it goes to shit, but since the Payday gang is involved, we recover and loot the place. Tons of loot all over the place, and there was even an armored car there for a little more. In the end, I made it out with 10 bags of diamonds, 5 bags of jewelry, and 4 bags of cash for a total of $5.1 million, plus $1.3 million for the contract and $1.5 million in instant cash. Brooklyn Bank. This is a fun heist where the approach can completely change depending on RNG. A bunch of little things can randomly change the core of the heist, and that really does help the replay value. There is story stuff going on, with the core objective being a fleur-de-lis emblem in the concrete of the bank vault, but Payday 2's story got so outrageously convoluted by the end that if I explained it, we'd be here all day. But aside from all that, it's also a bank with gold, ATMs, and deposit boxes. This heist can be a bit of a clusterfuck, but in the end I made it out with 12 bags of cash and 12 bags of gold for a total value of $11 million, plus $500,000 for the contract and $1.1 million in instant cash. Next up, the final stealth-only heist, Breakin Feds. This heist is cool from a story perspective since we're directly fucking with the FBI director who's been fucking with us, but I hate this heist so much. It is just pain. There are so many guards crawling around, they're always in places you don't want them to be, and when you're doing a video like this, you have to move a bunch of loot through hostile territory, and I just have an absurdly high failure rate on this heist. I never want to touch this thing again, holy shit. I made it out with 1 mystery box, 2 bags of money, and 3 bags of cocaine for a total of $3.9 million plus $1.3 million for the contract and no instant cash. Henry's Rock. This heist is part of what was initially planned to be the climax of Payday 2's story leading into the finale. Of course, that was before Overkill had their financial difficulties that led to them extending the content lifespan of the game because it was their only consistent revenue source. All the wild plot lines are starting to come together, those mystery boxes are making appearances, Murky Water are becoming bigger antagonists, it's a whole thing. I'm not super familiar with this heist as it was released during one of my breaks, so there's a chance there might be loot spawns I missed since they're in crates and don't show up on my HUD mod, but I was as diligent as possible. This is an absolute clusterfuck of a level and you really do get torn to shreds at points. But I made it out with 2 mystery boxes and 2 museum artifacts for a value of $4.6 million plus $3.3 million for the contract and no instant cash. Shacklethorne Auction. This is a fun heist beyond the story stuff because there's just a shit ton of optional loot. Thing is, much like the diamond, a lot of it is breakable artifacts, meaning a full loud approach is pretty much guaranteed to be a fail. So I gotta go stealthy at least until I bag the destructible stuff. And as we all know, if something's in a duffel bag, it can't be broken. It took a few attempts, but I finally had a run where I made enough progress to be comfortable finishing the heist out loud. Look, in my low detection loud build, I only have 1 body bag, which makes it a lot harder to remain undetected. And I did want to deal with the guaranteed restart that comes with sounding the alarm while committed to a full-on stealth build. In the end, I made it out with 1 black tablet and a whopping 36 museum artifacts for a total of $9.8 million, plus $6.5 million for the contract and $225,000 in instant cash. Hell's Island. This heist has a very Heat Street feel to it. Go through a long winding map with no backtracking for a specific objective that isn't stealing something. So So for reasons I'm not getting into here, the guy who handled all the planning and logistics for the heists, Bane, was caught and put in a prison very much reminiscent of Alcatraz. Details don't matter, but we're breaking him out. Awesome from a story perspective, tough from a gameplay perspective, but no loot to speak of unfortunately, so let's just skip ahead. $3.9 million for the contract and nothing else. For the 70th heist of this video, we've got the final remake from the first game, No Mercy, which takes place at the Mercy Hospital location from Left 4 Dead. The whole idea is that you have to collect special blood samples and analyze them. In the first game, it's strongly implied to be the zombie virus from Left 4 Dead, but in Payday 2 it does tie into the main story in ways that honestly feel pretty contrived to me. I think this is a really good heist, but there's no loot to speak of, so let's move on. $3.9 million for the contract and nothing else. Next, we've got what was originally the finale to Payday 2, and where the original version of this video on my main channel ended, White House. To be fair to younger ads, they did say they wouldn't be adding any new content at the time, so I figured the video would never become outdated. In any case, yes, this is a heist taking place at the White House in Washington, D.C. The premise is actually pretty clever in concept, even though it falls apart practically. The idea is that when Abraham Lincoln issued pardons to all the Confederate soldiers, he basically had a shit ton of templates printed up that he signed, which later had the names filled in. Nowadays, they're kept locked away in a panic room / command center in the White House, and we're gonna steal them to get all our crimes legally pardoned. It doesn't really make sense since that would only pardon federal crimes. Things like murder and theft are state crimes, which the president can't actually pardon. So yeah, I'll also quickly mention that this heist is where you can do the Payday 2 secret after a bunch of setup. The thing is, it doesn't actually affect the payout of the heist, so I'm not doing it for this video. Aside from that, there's no loot, and I'm just gonna skip ahead. $3.2 million for the contract, and nothing else. Border crossing. Okay, so most people don't really like this heist, and while I mostly agree that it's not very good, I do kind of like it. The thing about this heist is that it was released when Overkill's parent company, Starbreeze, they're legally distinct but functionally the same entity, had a lot of shit happening and they almost went under. They cobbled together a bunch of pre-existing assets to make a DLC pack to raise money as quickly as possible, and they were completely upfront about it. So most people were surprisingly understanding. I actually got this DLC for free because the developers actually used some of the data from my original video for their own internal stuff, and asked if I would gather the same data for the cash grabs. So that was kinda cool. So here's the thing about this heist that makes it kinda frustrating. For starters, I was forced to partially stealth it because there's some loot that's locked off if you go loud early. Not a huge fan of that. Secondly, since it's Frankenstein together, it doesn't really have its own visual identity. The objectives may be different, but it breaks my immersion when I can recognize entire rooms from other heists. Another issue is that this really should have been a 2-day heist. There are 2 distinct map segments with 2 distinct sets of objectives, but for whatever reason they made it a single day heist. Which meant I had to redo the first part every time I fucked up the second part. Lovely. That being said, there's a shit ton of loot to grab, and I always love that. First half is assassination stealth. Kill the bikers and grab some free meth and blueprints that were required for some of the loot. Second half is an airport hangar with a bunch of loot that we've got to steal. The blueprints spawn a Shadow Raid vault, which becomes unopenable if the heist goes loud. So I just beelined that thing open, and then I could do the rest loud. Now, there's a shitload of loot, so here we go. I made it out with 4 bags of meth, 4 pieces of Roman armor, 8 bags of cocaine, 15 bags of assault rifles, and 10 bags of cash, for a total of $30.3 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract, and no instant cash. Say whatever you want, that payout is nuts. Border crystals. The second part of the cash grab DLC is another cook meth until you get bored heist like Cook-Off. Okay, so it's structured as an infinite loot heist, though I'm not actually 100% sure if the loot is finite or not. You grab more chemicals from the trucks, but I don't know if more ever spawn in, and I don't really want to test it. That's hours even assuming 0 fuck-ups, and I just don't want to do the cook, secure, grab chemicals cycle 100+ times. Sorry, but that's just not happening. I'm 73 heists in, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I made it out with 3 bags of meth for a value of $8 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract, and no instant cash. San Martin Bank. Now, I know you probably think I forgot, but this is the heist that contains that Easter egg I mentioned at the start of the video. So the part that most people know is that the heist takes place in Mexico, and the nameplates on the desks will be references to various Hispanic celebrities. So there's J. Lopez, B. Del Toro, etc. But there's one that people don't tend to recognize. The manager's name is A. Rotolo. That's not any actor, director, or musician anyone recognizes. Well, that's because it's me. Like, actually, me. Ads, or at least me and my fleshy persona. Remember how I said that I gave Overkill some data from my original video and they gave me some DLC? Well, they also ended up putting my name in the game as an Easter egg. There are two things about that are pretty funny. Firstly, I'm not fucking Hispanic. My name is Italian, my great-grandparents were Ellis Island immigrants, and I don't think I have any Central or South American ancestry. I guess my name just kinda sounds like it. But also, this heist was released during one of my extended breaks, and nobody told me that they did this. So the first time I played this heist was literally 4 years post-release, and I got basically flashbang seeing my name on the manager's plate. I literally thought it was pulling some Doki Doki Literature Club shit and reading the username for the account on my PC for a bit. But yeah, that's an Easter egg that almost nobody knows about, and those that do only know because I told them when I first noticed it. So let's get back to the heist itself. Vlad's got some shit in the bank that he wants, so we're busting in. Vlad is my favorite contractor by a lot. Anyway, it's stealthable, but I decided not to since there are ATMs and you can just skip the first drill if you commit to loud from the outset. Annoyingly, there are 3 walls of deposit boxes that don't contain any bag loot but must be opened per my rule set. Annoying, but whatever. I had to pick most of them because I didn't bring any extra ammo for my saw. Not a fan, especially for the minuscule reward. In any case, I made it out with 10 Romanov treasures and 1 Fabergé egg for a value of $7.2 million plus $3.2 million for the contract and $2.6 million in instant cash. Breakfast in Tijuana. Yeah, there's a whole Mexico storyline going on, and in my opinion, everything after White House ended up feeling a little weird since this arc was never supposed to exist in the first place. And the only reason it does is because Overkill needed money. My lack of experience with this heist in particular really showed itself because I was just not familiar with the layout, but it's pretty simple all things considered. We're raiding a police station for some evidence and a detainee. Of course, also raiding the evidence locker and armory while we're there. If it wasn't for my floundering, I think I'd really like this heist. It's a small, fast map, but it keeps you moving and loud, and that's the kind of playstyle my ADHD-riddled brain likes. I should probably make an effort to play this one more often. In any case, after burning the evidence and freeing our ally, I made it out with 3 bags of assault rifles and 3 bags of pure cocaine for a total of $3.7 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract and a little over $40,000 in instant cash. Bullock's Mansion. This is a pretty fun heist overall. It's kind of like Scarface Mansion in that the goal is to kill the guy in charge, and there's a bunch of loot scattered throughout the place with a big chunk of it being in the basement. So interestingly, that meant that while I planned on going loud, I still spent favors on the stealth entrance just so the basement loot would be near a place to secure it. For some reason there's loot and safes scattered throughout the house. I say for some reason because you get cocaine from them, while there's also tons of cocaine just lying around in the open. In one case, literally right next to the safe. Anyway, you can give the guy a movie villain type of death if you release his pet shark before knocking him into the ocean, which of course I always do. Things went fairly smoothly, and I made it out with 4 bags of cash, 5 bags of assault rifles, and 12 bags of cocaine for a total of $8.8 million plus $3.2 million for the contract and no instant cash. Dragon Heist. This is part of a storyline involving the Chinese triads. I'm honestly not too sure about the story at this point. I kinda checked out after White House, and it was already starting to get weird by then. No, like there's supernatural shit and body swapping, and I don't really have the desire to keep track of all the new characters they added in this weird epilogue arc. So we're robbing a shop that's got a bunch of cool shit in the basement, including a valuable statue that we want. There are a couple of breakable artifacts, but not so many that I have to adjust my plans very much. There were some ATMs, which did force me to bring a saw. This is another heist that has us constantly moving around a small area, so safe to say that despite how burned out I was by this point, I enjoyed it. Let's just skip ahead. I made it out with 1 dragon statue, 1 tea set, 4 bags of gold, 4 museum artifacts, and 3 bags of cocaine for a total of $6.1 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract and a bit under $700,000 in instant cash. Ukrainian Prisoner. This is another prison break style heist, and this time we're saving Vlad, the Ukrainian. There's no bag loot except for a tea set during the standard gameplay loop, but there are a number of hidden buttons throughout the map. Press them all and you unlock a nice little loot cache towards the end. This heist isn't my favorite, but I think that's just a preference thing. I made it out with 1 tea set, 5 bags of gold, and 5 bags of cocaine for a total of $5.3 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract, and just under $500,000 in instant cash. Black Cat. We're fucking with the Triad some more. They got a vault full of money on their yacht known as the Black Cat, and we want it. Aside from the vault, there are a number of extra little bits of loot around the map. One of the cabins on the boat has some cocaine and weapons stashed inside, a safe we have to open has some stuff in it, and there's a safe with extra loot if we escort one of the Triad guys to it as a hostage. Is that last one worthwhile? No, it's just an achievement thing really, but it's loot so I have to get it. Now there is one oddity here that I'm not exactly sure what to do with. See, in stealth you secure the money in the vault in bags as you'd normally expect. I did not stealth this. In Loud, you just yoink the entire vault and it bypasses the normal loot securing system. You still get the value, but I'm not really sure how to count it. Whatever, the value will line up. I made it out with 3 bags of cocaine, 1 bag of cash, 2 bags of assault rifles, 1 T-set, and a vault full of money for a total of $7.1 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract and $30,000 in instant cash. Mounted Master. Now we're killing a dude in what I think is a high-rise apartment. There are ATMs, so I knew stealth wasn't really happening. One interesting feature of this heist is that there's a boss fight in Loud where the triad leader fights you with a flamethrower. I don't like Payday 2 boss fights. In any case, aside from that, there are 2 hidden gold storages, and like all the other triad heists, a T-set. I made it out with 8 bags of gold and 1 T-set for a total of $5 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract, and $600,000 in instant cash. Midland Ranch. Okay, so we're in the South now. Again, I haven't really been paying attention to the story at this point, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but the contractor has a southern accent and the guards are wearing denim and cowboy hats. So this heist has 2 parts, a do hacking part and a get or destroy loot part, and you can tackle either one first. These last few heists feature an interesting mechanic that I'd have liked to see more of, the ability to spend money and favors to make extra loot spawn in the heist. In this case, there are gunsmithing tables and weapon parts lying around. We find the parts, we can make a little bit of extra loot, and the payment made in pre-planning makes extra weapon parts spawn. Of course, I have to do this per my rule set. Just assume I always do this where available. I was able to get most of the looting done in stealth, which surprised me since I always run around like an idiot searching for the last few weapon pieces. No difference here. Nonetheless, it went reasonably smoothly, and the other half doesn't have any loot anyway, so there's no point going over it. I made it out with 14 bags of assault rifles for a total of $8.6 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract, and no instant cash. Lost in Transit. This is the heist that Train Heist wishes it was. Bunch of stuff in a train yard, including US Mint printing plates and a ton of money. You actually have a lot of options to avoid detection on this heist in stealth. More so than most of the maps. Hell, I haven't played this one a whole lot, but on reflection, it's probably one of the better stealth heists in the game. And in Loud, it's just a wild, frenetic experience with a bunch of different objectives taking you all over and even more chaos if you're going for extra loot. Can't complain there. After stealing everything I could find, I made it out with 9 printing plates and 26 bags of cash for a total of $10.8 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract and no instant cash. For our penultimate heist, Hostile Takeover. Basically, we're helping a corpo fuck over another corpo. This heist definitely feels like it was designed to be done in a human team because there are multiple objectives far from one another that can all be done simultaneously in a group of people. But I'm all on my lonesome, so I'll just have to take it one at a time. There's a truckload of wine, paintings and cocaine in the main office building, research in the lab, and a prototype in the showroom. It's another one of those heists kind of like Framing Frame where we're being dicks, but we're doing it to another dick so it doesn't feel so bad. This is a pretty fun heist though. Again, I like it when I have to move around in a way that's not strictly linear. After a bit of aggressive corporate espionage, I made it out with 1 Neo 2 prototype, 6 bags of old wine, 1 bag of cocaine, 11 paintings, and 6 research documents for a total of $13.3 million, plus $3.2 million for the contract, and no instant cash. And finally, the last heist in Payday 2, Crude Awakening. We're stealing oil, bitches! Basically, the idea is to infiltrate an oil refinery and do something to redirect the oil to our contractor. Honestly, I'm not sure how that's supposed to work, but I'm not going to question Payday 2 logic. There are some annoying puzzle elements to this map, including a pipe puzzle and a thing where you piece clues together to find the best oil. Not a fan of that, but the rest of the heist is fine. And to cap it off in Loud, we have the one decent boss fight in the game. But actually, I happen to have a really good stealth run and got past that point before tripping the alarm, so no boss fight for me. Oh, and you can pay for extra loot here too, meaning I also made it out with 6 bags of cash for a total of $2.1 million, plus $3.5 million for the contract and $5,000 in instant cash. That's Payday 2. This video is long just giving brief explanations, so imagine how burned out I was and how relieved I felt when I realized I was done. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the final tally. In terms of bag loot, we got 43 bags of cash at mission loot value, 280 at full value, 92 bags of gold, 22 bags of jewelry at mission loot value, 23 at full value, 78 bags of assault rifles, 4 bags of cocaine at mission loot value, 86 at full value, 6 paintings at mission loot value, 17 at full value, 25 bags of meth, 2 big artifacts, 63 museum artifacts, 1 server, 4 pieces of samurai armor, 4 pieces of Roman armor, 3 turret parts, 20 turret shells, 7 bags of pure cocaine, 11 warheads, 12 safes, 1 tin boy toy, 1 expensive wine, 1 VR headset, 1 goat, 7 bags of old wine, one of which may or may not hold value, 8 bags of evidence, the diamond, 4 mystery boxes, 1 Almir's toast, 3 bags of mini-meth, 12 bags of cloak or cocaine, 8 bomb parts, 2 EMP parts, 14 murky water weapons, 2 master servers, 1 car, 1 BCI helmet, 1 giant toothbrush, 1 pig, 1 lost artifact, 1 masterpiece, 1 prototype, 18 bags of diamonds, 1 black tablet, 10 bags of Romanov treasure, 1 Fabergé egg, 1 dragon statue, 4 tea sets, 1 vault with some number of money bags inside, 9 printing plates, 1 Neo 2 prototype, 6 research documents. Put that all together and we get a total value of $480,329,449. For the contract pay, which is the guaranteed non-bag payout for each heist, we get a total of $316,852,000. That actually ended up being closer to bag loot than I thought it would be. And lastly, instant cash. Just remember that this is not every single little pickup, and the numbers are slightly skewed due to the fact that I didn't always take the skill that boosts this value. In any case, I ended up with $39,981,500. Put it all together and we've got $837,162,949. This is of course not including tutorials, crime spree, the Payday 1 secret, holdouts, or infinite loot. So if you decide to do this for yourself, your mileage may differ. But if you were just looking for a number, here you go. Thanks for watching. This video was a very long time in the making, and I can't think of anything better to kick off the revival of my gaming channel. Moving forward, you can expect fairly regular content, primarily focused on achievement hunting, which I'll be streaming 3 times a week on my third channel, AdsVT, before putting together a scripted video for this channel. I'm currently playing through the first Danganronpa game, so expect a video on that whenever it's done. And of course, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and leave your thoughts in the comments, and check out the main channel for more analytical and writing-focused content. I've got something planned for that channel that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back